You're listening to Overdoing It, the Rhode Island Library podcast. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Overdoing It, where our team of library workers dish about their latest reads, views, and passions, alongside fascinating conversations with local luminaries. I'm your host, Lauren Walker, director of the Coventry Public Library, and my pronouns are she, her. Today, I'm joined by Michael Townsend and Leah Smith, the tape art duo traveling around the country and the world to make big art. In 2003, Michael and a crew of tape art collaborators made a secret apartment in the Providence Place Mall and lived there for 4 years without anyone knowing. This was the subject of the award-winning 2024 documentary, Secret Mall Apartment, directed by Jeremy Workman and produced by Jeremy Workman and Jesse Eisenberg. When a film about a Providence art project becomes a national sensation, you know that we are thrilled to be able to talk about it on the pod. So welcome, Michael and Leah.
Hello.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. So a little bit later in the show, we'll talk about tape art and the Secret Mall Apartment. But before we get to that, let's start out as we always do with what have you been reading and watching?
Well, what have we been watching? We have been watching, we like to dabble in world films. Part of that is to get a sense of like what everyone else is watching out there. So recently we took in Durandahar.
Durandahar was a film out of India that showed up in the movie theater, actually. It was in December. You could have just gone to any local theater and seen it. Super violent, epic tale based on real narratives about India and Pakistan feuding with each other. And of note, this movie was banned in Pakistan. And the news article that caught our interest was that it became the #1 torrented movie in Pakistan.
Wow.
So the people of Pakistan really wanted to see this blockbuster film.
Which is why we decided to sort of like seek it out. We're just interested. We watched a film last year that was from China that became one of the like a very, very popular movie we had never heard of. It didn't do very well in the US, but we were like, we're always so curious, like to try to be a little bit less US centric and just like put our eyes on like what kind of media are people out there, in the rest of the world.
Right. And that Chinese animation was one of the top grossing films ever. And I'm going to say this wrong, but Ne Zha 2, so N-E space Z-H-A space 2.
Yeah.
One of the most, the biggest blockbuster of all time.
Animated.
And it did it with primarily just the Chinese audience and the rest of the world, not the U.S. It bombed in the U.S. That's a big deal that they put up some big numbers on that movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I think it's really interesting that I know working in a library, a lot of people are, they don't love subtitles. Like if you recommend a movie and it has subtitles, they're like, not for me. But at the same time, I have a lot of friends who watch English language shows with subtitles. Like there's like a whole other section of society that is always using subtitles at all times for anything. So it's interesting. I'm assuming it quote unquote bombed in the US because of the people not wanting to read subtitles.
It has some incredible animations in it. Like just really, That's what I love about animation is that you will see the next level thing. Like the thing you had possible visually.
Right, because they can animate
Because they can do whatever they want. And in this movie, you see moments of that. We're like, oh, okay, we're still growing in that realm.
Yeah, that makes sense. You guys are artists, so you probably have a special appreciation for animation.
Yeah, we love new stuff.
In addition to having watched Secret Mall Apartment many months ago, I think, December or January or something, I have recently been rewatching Veep. I don't know if you guys have ever watched. I'm like so late on that train.
We're even later.
I've seen a handful of episodes.
Okay. Yeah. I just started the first season of it because I listened to Amy Poehler's podcast, Good Hang, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus was a guest on the podcast, and she has her own podcast called Wiser Than Me. And so between those two things, I was like, I don't think I ever saw Veep. And so I started watching it, and it's great. So, I mean, I'm only I don't know, probably if I'm a whole season in, I'd be surprised. But so far, I can highly recommend it.
All right. Okay, we'll have to put it on the list of possibilities.
Yeah. It's on, aside from being able to borrow it from your local library, it is on HBO Max, if that's what we're still calling it these days. I know it keeps changing its name. Have you guys been reading anything interesting?
I just started a book called The Temple of the Golden Pavilion.
Okay.
It's a Japanese author. I just cracked it open last night, so I can't say whether I would recommend it or not. But that's sort of my. It's supposed to be sort of a tale about decadence and imperial courts and such. So I that is what I'm up to next.
That sounds really interesting.
I'll look up and see if I can find the author.
Okay.
I have one book I've just been dabbling in for an embarrassingly long time, but whenever I'm like, oh, I should read some stuff. There's a book called If Nietzsche Were a Narwhal. And it's about animal intelligence and what animal intelligence reveals about human intelligence or human stupidity. So it's really, really dense, and it's so satisfying. So I will read a chapter and then just dwell on it for a month, and then read another chapter and dwell on it for. So this is taking me about 6 or 7 months so far. I'm not even done with it, but there are some absolutely fascinating ideas about animal and human evolution. The last chapter I read that has the haunting thought was the idea that animals don't live with a preconceived fear of their own death. They don't walk around thinking, "Oh, this is my last good day on Earth," or "I might get hit by that car." There's a general level of fear that doesn't exist in all animals, and that thing would have applied to human beings also at one point. So they're theorizing here that there was a point where a single human being, as an evolutionary trait, had that thing in their brain where they're like, oh, I could die.
Death is coming.
Death is coming. And it was just some language about how terrifying it would have been for that first person to be the first on the whole planet who's like, the end is near. And then as an evolutionary trait, that's all of us now.
Right.
There may be people who don't have that, and they'd be the absolute exception at this point.
Right. I mean, that makes sense because anxiety is like an evolutionary, it's your brain trying to protect you, and you have to explain to it that I'm not actually having my life threatened right now. This is just a meeting where I have to talk in front of a few people.
We're just bombarded with information all day long that's like, you know what? This might be it. And yeah, there would have been some period of time when no one had those thoughts.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a fascinating book. I'll have to make a note of that. It'll be in the show notes, so I will have a note of it, and then I can put it on my Storygraph list. And I just finished reading Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy, which is, I don't know if you know who she is. She was a Nickelodeon child star who wrote a memoir. I believe it's called I'm Glad My Mom Died. And it was a national sensation and kind of exposed some of the stuff that she went through as a child star. And her first fiction book is this novel called Half His Age, and it's about a high school student who is having an affair with her teacher. And I will say, while the subject matter is obviously uncomfortable to read, her writing is very good. And I think some of her observations about being a teenage girl, like there were ways that she phrased things that I was like, whoa, like that was a perfect sentence about that thing. So it's hard to say I enjoyed reading it because of the difficult subject matter, but I am glad that I read it because I think that she is a very good writer. So I can sort of recommend it. There's a lot of buzz about it. So I basically wanted to see what the buzz was about. And I do think that it definitely has literary merit, and she is a good writer. So I look forward to her maybe writing something that's less uncomfortable to read. In the future, but that also might be her MO, judging by the title of her memoir. So there you have it.
Wide range of recommendations for people.
Yes, very wide range. Can you tell me a little bit about tape art? Where did you get the idea to create works of art out of tape?
Sure. The genesis of tape art, or loosely the tape art movement, started right here in Providence. So this is 1989. I moved to Providence, and the very first night I was here with a group of my new friends, spent the night exploring downtown Providence, which, if you're an old timer and you remember Providence at that time, was a ghost town. Like, really, on a Saturday night, it was just dead. We had Haven Brothers, and that was it. There was no other reason to be downtown. So we sort of had that great freedom of traveling around what appeared to be like a movie set of a city. And the evening ended in a conversation with a police officer who was very curious why we had a 8-foot balloon with us. It was an object I had brought with me from home. We had filled it up at the gas station. We had this gigantic balloon. He's like, the assumption was that we had taken it from somewhere. We're like, well, from where? Like, from Haven Brothers? That conversation went on for a while. RISD security came in and freed us from the police officer. We were all riled up because it was our first night in the city. And we dedicated our end of the night activity to drawing a life-size portrait of a person on the ground with a balloon in a police silhouette style outline.
Right. Like the crime.
Like the crime we had committed, which is having a balloon. So we sat on tape because we were looking at the materials that we had, and chalk was not amongst them. So tape was the good backup, and also satisfied my impulse to be temporary. I was like, whatever we do, I want to know that we can do it and no one can give us a bad time about it, because we can just pull it up.
Right.
We slept for a couple hours, got up, looked at the drawing, and looked at other people looking at the drawing who were like, oh, it was really just exciting that someone had made some art. And so 24 hours later, we returned, tore up that drawing, and did life-size dinosaurs. And then 24 hours later, tore up that drawing and made a better drawing. So we're like, okay, these drawings are interesting, but they're not visually stunning. So we did a chariot crash, and that started to dip into this is fun. We can draw really big. We can draw in teams. We can interrupt public spaces. We can do it without getting in trouble. We can be spontaneous. We can literally walk out there and be like, what do you want to draw? And all of these ideas still percolate through all the murals that we make. Still drawing collaboratively, still drawing really, really big, still telling narratives about things that either happened or are in principle happening right now. And just using buildings as a surface for telling big stories.
Yeah. And at that time, the tape that the crew at that time was using was a masking tape. So they were sort of trapped on surfaces like brick and cement, and sort of surfaces that were very durable, and a lot of them outside. And with the advent of painter's tape, which comes along in the early 90s, that was sort of the freedom that allowed going onto painted surfaces, which means we can expand the practice to institutions. So today we spend a lot of time in schools, we spend a lot of time in hospitals, we spend a lot of time in community centers. And like the only reason that we can spend time in those spaces is because we can use this, low adhesive tape that can come off of painted walls without damaging them. So like the story of many art practices, the mediums that were developed for industrial purposes can be like the driver, of advancements in art.
That's very cool. Do you draw it out ahead of time and plan what you're going to do? Or is it, I don't know if freehand is the right word with tape, but
yeah, almost never. Yeah. So there's a rare circumstance where we will look at a building and see it as maybe a building is extremely challenging because it has a lot of windows and surfaces to like fight against. But for the most part, we walk up to a wall the day that we're going to draw, and we have conversations almost like setting the stage of a play where you're like, okay, I think there's going to be like 2 giraffes coming in from the left over there, and then over here we'll have a tree, we'll have some people, a crowd.
So they're products of groupthink and conversation. The main issue with having a draft is that a lot of times a group of people will say that's the plan, and therefore we need to execute that plan, and any deviation from it starts to feel like some form of failure to some people, or
betrayal of the idea
by others. And so the engine that makes these drawings so special and authentic is just that they represent the collaborative process, the purest form of collaboration, where you are taking risks and evolving things in real time and holding each other accountable.
Sometimes we start a drawing and we'll get pretty deep into it, like 4 or 5 hours, and we'll be like, oh no, this is not how we sort of were imagining it. Actually, we need to like do more of this or less of this. And because it's tape, we can literally tear down sections, remake sections, shift our ideas in the middle. If somebody has like a really great idea, like a couple hours in because they were spurred on by something that we have already made and that they're seeing evolve, we can shift to find those good solutions without being trapped by...
The thing that's unusual about it is just the scale. Because a lot of the things we're describing, people will do on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper when they're drawing or painting or dancing or doing sculpture, where they're sort of navigating and reacting to the thing they're making in real time. But we're just doing several stories high
for the public to see
and in front of people, which is a wild thing because it is effectively a big performance piece.
Yeah, they get to see all our bad drawings before they become good drawings.
That's right.
So I know you mentioned that kind of the idea that started it was the impermanence of it. I was wondering now, how long do the tape art installations stay up? Like, especially because you're doing some indoors, weather isn't really a factor, which I'm sure it must have been at the beginning or for any outdoor ones.
Yeah, so in general, so here's sort of the buckets that the tape art falls into. There's the big mural. So that's when we go out, we transform a building.
Our own art practice.
That's the two of us, maybe with some other collaborators. And that's us drawing 10 to 14 hours a day as a like big performance piece. And this will go on sometimes for weeks on end.
Wow.
Those works, we prefer to leave up for 24 hours.
Just 24 hours.
We finish those, we give them 24 hours, like, ta-da! And then we invite the public to rip it down with us. And so that's a really memorable thing. We've had hundreds of people show up to remove a drawing. And it's a real joy because everyone feigns that they could never destroy this piece of artwork that has moved them so deeply. But the second you blow a whistle and everyone takes off that first piece of tape, it is just chaos. And anything they can reach is usually gone in under 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Wow.
Weeks of work just evaporates.
Yeah.
The next sort of category is the healing arts. So this is when we do art for communities that have experienced tragedy or are working in institutions like hospitals and psych wards, where you're doing work with and for someone for the purposes of them objectifying pain or horror or loss. And those works are left up for those people to remove when they are ready.
Okay.
And that time universally is around 2 weeks.
Okay.
There's sort of a general sort of like in the act of mourning, 2 weeks seems to be the moment where you're like, you know what, I'm ready to let this part of the process go. I'm ready to tear down this drawing. And then there's this like a sloppy third category where we work with community groups. Where effectively we're facilitating. We're the cheerleaders. We're the technicians. We're the prompt givers. They make it work, and then they feel the anxiety about how long it should stay up. We recommend 2 or 3 days, a week or two at most. But there are some institutions who are like, no, this is the most beautiful. This represents us. We're going to leave it up for as long as we possibly can. And as you noted, if it's inside, there's no weather problems. It will just stay there.
In fact, it will stay there more and more as time goes on.
That's right.
Because ink is a chemical and adhesive is a chemical, and chemicals that spend a lot of time together come to love each other.
Yep.
So for us, there's also the technical side where we always are advising people, hey, if you care about the possibility of damage, you should be, testing to like see as you go.
But the most important thing is that the removal of the work is such a critical part of the experience. Mm-hmm. And students and teachers who remove the work in that week to 2 week time period have all reported back. It's universal that they're like, that was the best part. It is equally empowering to draw on the walls and remove the work from the walls. In both cases, it's an act of stewardship.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a therapeutic thing almost. I mean, when you say 24 hours, my first thought is, I hope you took a picture of it. But I feel like my instinct to like capture it and have a picture of it is also, we have this kind of like preciousness about things. And I feel like maybe taking it down is almost like letting go of that idea that everything needs to stay, and like being okay with that sense of impermanence. And I think that probably makes people feel great, which is why they're hesitant at first, and then once they try it, they're like, oh, this is really nice. They don't even know they're like ripping down a part of their brain that they don't want to have around.
Yeah.
It also helps with the making process, because there's a lot of people who feel stuck by just the idea, like even us sometimes, like if you were like, go make a mural that's going to be here for the next decade, mm-hmm. like I'm going to feel the weight of that mm-hmm. Responsibility for like everybody's eyeballs every day for a decade on this wall.
Right.
So there's a lot of freedom, especially for students who maybe have anxiety about making art or being perfectionists, where like you can like the knowledge that this is going to be a short-lived
experience.
Artwork makes it so that there's like more, we like to say draw recklessly mm-hmm. because, we want you to draw big. We want you to draw fast. We want you to just sort of like make, and not be held back by this fear of like, oh my gosh, it's not going to look exactly how I want. Like you'll be gone.
Yeah.
Right. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So do you have any favorite tape art projects, either your favorites aesthetically or ones that meant the most to you?
Yeah. Well, just to put that question in context, I've done over 500 large-scale drawings in the last. So, and I also have sort of a goldfish memory about mm-hmm. the drawing. So it's often the one we had just previously done is the one that resonates.
There are some that do stand out. There's one that we did on the Brooks Museum in Memphis, down in Tennessee, back in 2017. That one was a gorgeous white building, which means you have just like a great like contrast between our tape and the wall color. Mm-hmm. And that one had a bunch of like large scale trees and like figurative characters, and that one sticks out to me as like being like particularly aesthetically pleasing.
And one of the greatest uses of thin lines we've had in a drawing. We had all these characters up in a tree that were in the tree for long enough that their hair had grown several stories down to the ground. So it was several stories of like 1/8 inch tape that we hand ripped.
Wow.
So it's just cascading hair. And those are great joys because we were given the time and space to do that type of obsessive line making. Mm-hmm. Also in that drawing is a leaf pattern, which is just mind numbing. If you look at it close, you're like, did they draw every leaf on this tree like one at a time? It's like, yes, we did.
Wow.
And so that's one that, as far as mm-hmm. visual aesthetics goes, that's one that really mm-hmm. represents kind of the high bar as far as visual impact.
Yeah. But we've gotten the opportunity, like, because there are walls like almost everywhere and tape is like a fairly light material, you can just throw a bunch of it in a backpack and sort of go places with it. There's been a lot of opportunities for us to do artworks abroad, which is like, an awesome way to see the world, because, you know, and sometimes on these big projects, people will be like, oh, how did you love, you know, Tokyo, or how did you love Hong Kong? And it's like, I do love Hong Kong, but I can also tell you really more specifically about like what life is like at the wall there. So like that one wall in that one neighborhood, yeah. You really, after spending days and days and days there from like sun up to sundown, you really get a sense of the rhythm of who is spending time out in those public spaces. So like you meet people who are just like the people hanging out at the bus stop, and you like meet the people who are like always walking home from work at the same time. Mm-hmm. And you really, it's a way to experience different places on a more like local level, because as opposed to sort of just like wandering through them as a tourist, which is super fun also, you sort of are actually like experiencing more of the day-to-day life while you're getting to also make art, which is super fun.
Yeah, that's fascinating to just be like in the same place for however long it takes you. And so you're literally just like observing life while focusing on your
You're eating at
art.
the corner store, and you're like sitting on the street, you know, taking in a snack and having people, you know, come up and talk to you.
Yeah, and because the work is temporary, we don't have any of that kind of. It would be a negative feeling for me to go to a neighborhood that I will never return to again ever, and leave something that they have to sort of deal with visually for the next decade or more.
Yeah.
And there are some artists who are masterful at doing that. Like they're like, I have beautified this neighborhood and I'm out. But that's not, it's sort of not where our interest is.
Yeah, we're more interested in like
social connections,
providing catalysts for hopefully like other people to make art on those walls. So we like come in, show something cool, and then like disappear, leaving space hopefully for somebody else's artwork as well.
Very cool. So in the middle of your work on the Hope Project, which was a September 11th memorial, you began a new project, the Secret Mall Apartment. Yes. So for any listeners who haven't seen the documentary yet, can you talk a little bit about where this idea came from and how it got started?
Yes. So the early 2000s were wrought with emotion. A lot of things happened at the same time. The neighborhood I live in Providence was called Eagle Square. It is a collection of mill buildings along the Woonasquatucket and about a mile from downtown. These buildings had fallen into, let's call it, light disrepair, and slum landlords neglect. There you go. So slum landlords had bought them all up, and they don't want to invest in them. They don't want to fix the roofs. They don't want to make them like business ready. So they found the perfect persons to rent, which is just artists. Artists who are unique creatures in that they do need space to make work. They do need communities to make, in some cases, the best work. They're willing to live and work in the exact same space. Like their living room is their studio, their dining room is their studio, their kitchen is their studio. So one of the big collectives that I lived in was called Fort Thunder. It was about 10 artists, give or take 2 or 3. And we had about 10,000 square feet. And my portion of the rent was $150 a month.
Wow.
And I can't emphasize enough how critical having affordable spaces for getting better at artwork is, because artists are not paid to get good at what they do. So the tens of thousands of hours it takes to actually become masterful,
printer, a master painter,
at any medium, is done effectively on your own time and your own dime.
Right.
And therefore, the affordable housing for artists is a uniquely important thing. And these mill buildings provided that. And in our neighborhood, we had the estimates, low-end estimates are 300, high-end 500 artists living and working all within a couple blocks of each other. And the mall opened in August of 1999, and it was one of the largest development projects at that time in Rhode Island's history, one of the largest tax breaks in Rhode Island's history, and it sent a signal to developers that Providence was open for business. And so the next big development project came to our neighborhood, assessed the situation. They're like, well, these mill buildings are in bad shape. and they're not filled with anyone who has any power or any economic clout. Therefore, we can knock them all down and build a strip mall and a supermarket and parking for 600 cars, and we will have done this neighborhood a service. They put that plan on the table at a city hall meeting in front of all the stakeholders who would be affected by it, and were met with fury. Like, people were pissed. I amongst them, because one of the slides that they showed was a sort of like nuclear radius map of the impact of this strip mall and the communities it would serve. But the central point of it was Fort Thunder. And so they
literally pinpointed that
with no shame whatsoever. We're like, we're just going to knock all these buildings down and we'll have this incredible thing for everybody. That from 2000 and 2002 kicked off 2 years of my life fighting City Hall, fighting developers, fighting in the most effective way I could, which is to just be on the inside track, not protesting in the traditional sense, more getting myself into the rooms where the decisions were happening. 2 years.
So boring.
So boring. My God.
But necessary.
Right. The advantage of all of these activities is that we were able to save every single mill building on that block except for Fort Thunder.
Oh,
So
wow.
one building I lived in was knocked down to create centralized parking for all the buildings that we saved. So that's 2000, 2002. In the middle of that, 2001, September 11th happens. So we had this tragedy in New York City. And as an artist that had spent many years leading up to that moment doing work that was rooted in memorializing and helping communities that had experienced tragedy, that became one of the largest sort of emotional puzzles to solve. This is an incredible loss of life. It has an impact, especially regionally. We're all shell shocked about it, and nationally, the need for action was there. The initial thought was, this is an incredible loss of life, especially by U.S. standards. Like, we just don't experience things like this. The New York Times, the Sunday after the tragedy, printed a 2-page spread of every single fireman's faces. Every fireman that died at the World Trade Center. It was like 343 firemen, and they're on 2 pages, and you could just look and see them all at the same time. And that really hit me hard. And the other group that we knew for certain were the airline passengers. So between those two groups, there was about 500 people, and we're like, those are the people we will draw. We did this action, but the action was ultimately too complicated to share in a simplified form. The movie does a better job of it than we ever did, because the movie just says, here's some artists that tried to make a memorial. That's the story. But this September 11th project snowballed a whole bunch of artists into a pretty tight team of 8 artists who are going down on a regular basis to Manhattan to try to execute this large, lofty September 11th memorial. So for 2 years, we made this pilgrimage to Manhattan to do graffiti in broad daylight, graffiti meaning drawing with tape. That created an incredible bond between those artists, because they were already in the process of constantly accepting the risks of making art that could get you in trouble. And so by 2003, we have lost Fort Thunder. We're done fighting City Hall officially. We listened to developers for years talk about the benefits of developing spaces that are underdeveloped. We decided to go spend a week in a mall, just 1 week.
For fun.
Just for fun, just to scratch back a tiny bit, just to get to sort of like
a little gotcha,
just to understand this structure that was a catalyst for the effects that happened in our neighborhood. And it's during that week that we found the space that would become the Secret Mall apartment, 750 square feet of underdeveloped space. And using that tension from every meeting I'd been in, that there is a responsibility, a right to develop spaces to better our city. We're like, we're doing it. We're going to build it. We're going to build. We are the developers now. And that's the next 4 years. So we have 8 artists who are used to breaking rules for a higher idea about art. We've been doing push-ups for 2 years to make this thing happen. We've been recording ourselves committing art crimes And so by the time we start the Secret Mall apartment movie, we are perfectly weaponized to make it work and take our time. There's no rush.
Right. So as a librarian, I have to ask, did you have any books in the Secret Mall apartment?
No.
No books. Only video games.
Video game.
Or just one.
A single game. Yeah.
Well, we have those at the library too.
You are the first person to ask that question. I'm going to just say we didn't get to that point yet. I think for us, the books is sort of like the frosting on the cake.
Mm-hmm. There's bookshelves in the studio.
Yeah.
More light there too.
Yeah.
No natural light in the apartment.
Right.
It was all dark and all lamps.
Not the kind of place you really want to be living.
Read for long periods of time.
Right.
Yeah.
I think inevitably that would have happened, but we didn't get to that point.
You and Colin were planning on. Michael and Colin had a plan that right before the arrest, the next year they were going to enter the mall on January 1st and not leave the mall for a whole year.
Wow.
So there was ideas about plumbing happening so that like the apartment would be like fully functional, and then getting jobs in the mall, finding ways to like eat in the mall that wouldn't make you the worst. That would have been a place where like I think the hominess of the apartment would have gone like way up, because literally it would have been like the only space to retreat to.
Right. And in the movie, if you do see it again, you'll see during the week in the mall that we are spending a lot of time in the Borders. So we have access to books. We can read freely whenever we want.
Yes.
As long as you're on premises.
R.I.P. Borders.
R.I.P. Borders.
Well, that at least on the upside, if you didn't have any books in there, then none of them got sealed in.
They didn't get confiscated.
You didn't lose any books.
No.
So I know, again, you said that you never planned for the apartment to be permanent, but what was it like to leave it and realize that you would probably never go back?
We were, Colin and I, in the last stanza before my arrest, were really ramped up to make some significant changes. Mm-hmm. We had purchased enough wood floors for 750 square feet and moved them into the mall. We had bought the upgraded furniture, big fluffier couches, like classier stuff, a full-size fridge.
Wow.
We were on the verge of doing that. We had built a 75-gallon water tank so we could have toilet and sink water. And you figured out how
that does make sense if you were planning on spending a whole year.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is something that haunts me, because we had put in so much effort for the next stage, and then it was abruptly ended.
Yeah. Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
And did you ever have a plan to go public with it at all? Because I know I would have been so proud of it. I would have wanted to tell every single person. I can't imagine keeping it a secret.
Aha. And I think this is one of the reasons why the project lasted as long as it did, is my arrest happens a couple months after the first iPhone was released. So that gives you a sense of where we are on the technological timeline. Mm-hmm. So there is a pre-iPhone world where when you documented things,
it was just for yourself.
Just for yourself.
Right.
Just a dead end.
The whole movie, essentially.
Yeah. We had no intention of ever sharing it with anybody.
In fact, it was very funny. This movie came out, and when it first started showing in the sort of like New England area, a couple of the artists actually brought their parents to the movies, and that was their parents' first time of ever hearing about this apartment.
Wow.
Was like literally almost 2 decades later in a movie theater with it on the full screen. Like that is the first time. So like the level of secrecy was like intense, like not just from the public, but also from a lot of people, a lot of the artists' personal lives, friends and such.
Yeah.
Some friends knew about it, I think, right?
Yes. Yes.
I guess that makes sense, that the people you would want to share it with, you were sharing it with already. And so if there wasn't really that idea of telling the world about things unless you were going to like write a press release.
Right. And if we did share it with anyone, we'd be kicked out immediately.
Right. Yeah.
So,
That's true.
Yeah. So logistically, we have to keep it a secret.
Yeah. There wasn't like an idea of like a grand finale where like at the end of all of this, we'll make it public and then we'll get kicked out and that will be the end of it.
The grand finale for us was, as Leah had mentioned, was that Colin and I were going to move in for an entire year and not leave the building. So the grand finale was to get jobs at the mall and do everything at the mall. All of our personal aesthetics, all of our, how we looked, how we dressed, how we ate, become effectively the manifestation of all the advertising and all the promise of the mall. And that was the finale for us, at least at that moment.
That's like one of the joys of like a collaboration like that. It's just that it is open-ended. Like it's possible that they would have spent that year in the mall and then been like, wow, well, I'm satiated. Like we don't need this anymore. And it would have just like ended without any fanfare, or maybe during that year there would have been a new idea spurred from their experiences, and that can, like what does it become next? It could evolve again. So it's sort of like when you're in a collaboration like that, a big project, you got to give yourself over to the possibilities that could come up.
Right. Yeah. Like you're saying this is like, oh my gosh, wouldn't it have been awesome if we were working at the mall and there was an opening in the leadership command at the mall itself.
You're starting to infiltrate.
Exactly. We become like head of marketing for the mall, but we actually just live there anyway. Like that would have been, and this is the sort of thing, is that we would have just been open to all those possibilities. And how awesome it would have been if we ended up working for the mall itself. Oh,
right.
In security, perhaps.
Oh my God. Yeah. So
even better, head of security.
Yeah.
So were you surprised when you were first approached about a documentary?
Well, first approached about a documentary is immediately after it became international news in 2007.
Okay.
And not just approached, bombarded with requests, because an additional note is that there was a writer's strike about to happen. So Hollywood producers were freaking out because they're about to lose the most important thing they have, which is just the writers. Where are their stories going to come from? And here's this story.
Bulletproof narrative.
Bulletproof narrative. That was the slang they used. I heard that slang more than once in these phone calls. Movie deals, book deals, TV deals. So many offerings that we decided were not worth it because the story was spreading internationally. We're doing so many interviews with different people in different cities around the world. And we're like, okay, as a piece of art, as a story, this thing is doing perfectly fine on its own. And so we turned everyone down and continued to turn them down several times a year for the next 15 plus years.
Wow.
Yeah, until we met Jeremy.
And what made you say yes to Jeremy?
We were both doing a tape art project in Athens, Greece, at a huge opera house. Yep. And as part of this festival that we were working for, there was a domino toppler named Lily. She's a YouTube star, and we actually kind of recognized her by face. We were like, "Hey, that's Lily, the domino toppler from YouTube." And Jeremy was following around doing his previous documentary from Secret Mall Apartment, which is Lily Topples the World. And we got to see him sort of in action. We got to see him, like how he works with subjects. We recognized some of his past films. Michael had seen a couple of his previous documentaries. They all sort of deal with either sort of obsessive characters or artist characters and trying to make them more and their projects more accessible to the public. So we sort of felt this trust in his previous work. We saw how he was working with Lily at the time. And when Michael shared with him when we were just chatting him up, like the mall project, he actually didn't even believe us that it was a thing that happened. And then we didn't talk to him again for another year or so. He contacted us back, was like, I'm done with this documentary. I'm interested in this mall project. Like, do you have any footage? And so Michael dug up this hard drive that hadn't been opened in years and years and was like, we just sent it to Jeremy. We were like, you tell us if any of this footage like has any teeth to it. And, 24 hours later, he came back and was like, you basically already shot a movie. We just need to like
frame it.
So at that point we were like, well, some of the conditions are that you need to tell the greater story, like that it's not just a prank, it's not just this romp in the mall. It has like historical context in the city, and also get all the other artists on board.
Yeah, so Jeremy was the one as a director who understood that to tell the Secret Mall apartment story, you have to talk about the September 11th project and stuff we're doing in hospitals and the tunnel project. You have to contextualize a lot of things in order to understand our motivations and who we are as artists. Mm-hmm. And all the other directors, especially as time had gone on, were only focused on the prankish nature of it, sort of the urban folklore of it. And we had zero interest in that. And then the biggest caveat was you have to get the other 7 artists to say yes. And we're like, I know these 4 over here are gonna be like, yeah, sure, it sounds great. And these 3, good luck. Like they have their own professional art careers, and the last thing you want to do is be labeled the person who lived in the mall, because that sticks, especially when you have a serious art practice. But he, as a documentary filmmaker, that is what he's very good at, is helping people understand or building trust enough that he can get them on camera. He did it.
And what was it like recreating the moment when you were caught? I thought it was really cool how they basically built a replica of the apartment. And I can only imagine how surreal that must have been.
Yeah, it's a great balance, because in the movie you see actual footage of us getting caught for the first time. Like it's absurd that we have that on film, and that it's well composed.
Oh, the one that's in
it's in the movie, yeah.
The one from the original footage that's in the parking garage.
Right, the parking garage. Right. So there's real footage of us about to get caught, and then there's pretend footage of us getting caught.
Right.
And I think it was a really fun device for Jeremy as a filmmaker to sort of create a scenario where he can continue to tell the story in a very vibrant and realistic way, and also play off of all of our streams of consciousness. Because when I was doing my interviews and I was saying, hey, when that doorknob turned, all these things went through my mind. And he's like, oh, we can make a set. We can do that. Everything you just said, we can bring that to life. And so I'm really glad he made that decision, because I think it really helps the audience feel like they're in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
A picture of what the space would have looked like. Everything is obviously a recreation, so it's not the exact things, but they did a pretty good job of making that set look like it was
It's nice to see some 4K version of it, because the cameras we were using were the opposite of 4K. What is
about as opposite of 4K.
Yeah, there's it was 320 by 240 pixels for the screen.
That's the size of 4 postage stamps.
Yeah, and 10 frames a second. So he did an incredible job on a technical level of upscaling that footage to make it usable for the big screen.
I think that even if you had done a documentary maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the technology would maybe not have been as advanced for making that footage look as good as it does.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So that's another nice thing about having waited and for the right time, is that that footage can show on a movie screen, and it feels nostalgic, and it's definitely blurry, a little blurry, and a little old, but it still has that feeling of oh, I like what I'm seeing. I mean, we even saw a preview for the movie on the IMAX in the Providence Place Mall, so we got to see some of that crazy footage 6 stories tall, which is insane for the quality of footage that we handed Jeremy on that hard drive.
Wow.
Yeah.
And at the end of the documentary, there's sort of speculation that there might be residential units built in the mall complex. So my question is, if they did that, would you be interested in moving there?
Oh my gosh. I would be interested in, I would chill for them if they did it right. If they created sort of mixed use housing and mixed income housing, and did something that sort of was risk taking and good leadership. All I'm putting a lot of qualifiers on it.
Sure.
But I'm willing to play ball. Like
I think that like Providence needs housing, period.
Yes.
So like housing is good. I think the probability that they do it in a way that is like equitable or good for the community is like a very tough. It's a tough building to repurpose, no matter how they choose to do it. So.
But we read an article that the mall is properly up for sale now. So anyone listening, check your couch cushions. Fine.
if all of Rhode Island
pools together, we can buy. We can do what we want with it.
My big spare change jar.
Exactly.
Yes.
So they mentioned in this article that it was either 40 or 60,000 square feet inside the mall that was never developed ever. And
never finished.
Never finished. And we've seen some of those spaces, like officially, like we said, hey, we've been looking through this crack, 15, 20 years ago. Like, can you bring us there? Like, yeah, sure. And they bring us and we're like, what is this incredible space?
Right, the size of a box store, just empty with like not really finished drywall, just like cement floors.
So there is plenty of space for them to come up with economic solutions that could help the mall serve this city better. And that's a combination of possibly housing or services. The holistic version of it for me is that there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to enter into this Goliath of a building, like one of the largest buildings in Providence, and not have opportunities to learn something. Mm-hmm. Like walk out of there with a skill, like I learned how to knit and I got my blood pressure checked. That's an experience that could and should happen.
Well, maybe they should have a consultant that maybe has already developed the mall without being asked.
And then I've been put in the funny position of the movie showed at the mall. It did a 32-week run at the mall. Outrageous, right. Titanic numbers. And I find myself in a lot of Q&As being a champion for the mall. I was like, don't make me do this. don't make me be the guy who's like,
entity.
Yeah, everyone who's like, we really want this mall to fail and go away. It's like, where would it, like, we have to applaud any moment where they're like, when they're thinking outside the box for even a second. And this all started because you said briefly that they had flirted with putting housing in there. And that was we have in downtown Providence, we have the first inside shopping mall in America.
I just went there for the first time like a few months ago, and I think I just kind of found myself in it because I was going to Rogue Island, which attaches onto it, and I was like, hey, this is a nice place.
It is a super cool claim to fame that we've got the first interior, shopping plaza in America, and it's mixed use now. So the upper level of that is all micro apartments. We have, and I know it's a lot smaller, but we have a model of it in our own city that has worked pretty well from all reports.
Yeah, well, lots to think about, and lots to keep an eye out for in the news and new developments.
Yes.
So we wrap up the show with a segment called The Last Chapter, where we talk about a library or bookish related question. And today I wanted to ask, if you were forced to read outside your comfort zone, which genre or topic would you choose to explore and why?
Outside our comfort zone.
Outside our comfort zone in the written
in like your what you usually gravitate towards to read. So like when I was thinking about this question, I thought I order the fiction for our library, and I always see these like best-selling like man books, like James Patterson and David Baldacci and authors like that are just like, these are the series that maybe a certain specific demographic is always coming in to read the newest one. And I'm not a part of that demographic, and I've never read any of them, but I've always wondered, like, maybe I should give one a shot and see if I like it. Or, I do like watching thrillers. A lot of them are thrillers. So I don't know, that to me, if I were to get out of my comfort zone of what I usually read, I might dip my toe in that just to have an opinion about it.
Sure. I guess I don't spend any time in true crime. I try, generally speaking, to stay pretty far away from that type of
murder fest.
Yeah, it feels gratuitous to me to be reading about violence and stuff in that way. So I guess but I do have a lot of friends who take in podcasts and books and movies and TV series in that genre. So I do often feel a little disconnected in that way. So yes, I suppose in order to feel connected into those communities, it is very popular. So maybe I would dip my toe into something true crime.
Yeah, I would say we spent a lot of time together. I would say we would probably share that experience. We'd go buy that one book and be like, "Look, we got to check this out." But it'd be really nice. So I think we share that. That would be outside of our.
We watch a lot of action movies, but as far as reading true crime or watching true crime stuff, none of the action stuff that we watch or read dabbles in them based on a true story.
Yeah,
that's fair. I can relate to that too, actually. I'm not a true crime person, but I just read, I'll recommend to you an art theft true crime book. So there's no murder involved. It's called The Art Thief by Michael Finkel. And I just read it with my book club and it was pretty good and no one got murdered in it. So I can recommend if you want to dabble without murder, you can read The Art Thief.
A true story.
Yes.
Of love, crime, and the dangerous obsession by ... All right, we'll find out. Okay.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, thank you. Really
this was
appreciate
lovely.
it.
It's been a great chat. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I want to encourage our listeners to watch Secret Mall Apartment, currently streaming on Netflix, available to rent on other platforms, and available to borrow on DVD or Blu-ray for free through your local library. You can find out more about tape art at tapeart.com or on Facebook and Instagram at tapeart. Overdoing It is proud to be a resident partner of the Rhode Island Center for the Book and brought to you by library staff and community members all around the Ocean State. The project has been funded in part by the Rhode Island Office of Library and Information Services. If you'd like to share your answer to our last chapter question, send us an email at overdoingitpod@gmail.com or find us on Instagram at overdoingitpod. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review us to help us reach more Rhode Islanders. Thank you for listening, and this has been another episode of Overdoing It, the Rhode Island Library Podcast. We are overdoing it, but you're doing just fine.